Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Ready, Set, NetSuite, a NetSuite demonstration and introduction to Luxent. My name is Laura Ginsberg. I'm the marketing director here at Luxent and excited to be joined by Vivian and Ben as we dig into this great conversation today. A couple of housekeeping items up top. We are recording today's session and we will make sure that you get a copy of that recording. We'd also love to answer your questions. Feel free to put them into the Q&A panel at any point during our presentation. We'll get to as many as we can live on today's webinar, and we'll be sure to follow up with you if we don't get to your question. With that, let's look at our brief agenda, which is action-packed. I'm going to give you a brief introduction to Luxent and our team, talk a little bit about the NetSuite platform and its excellent growth over these past few decades and how it is the right fit for many businesses, including in specialized manufacturing industries. We'll get a demonstration of the NetSuite platform, talk about packaging and pricing, and then go through some next steps before we wrap up with Q&A. This is a 1-hour presentation, and with that, I'll hand it over to Vivian.
Great, thanks, Laura. Hi, I'm Vivian Keene. I'm the CEO and president of Luxent. We were founded in 2009. This is celebrating our 14th year. Located in Southern California, over in the Aliso Viejo area. We're a NetSuite Solution Partner, which primarily means we do everything from sell the licensing of NetSuite to support and implement it, and have the long-term relationship with the customer. Have a lot of experience on our team. We start with the ERP selection and we go all the way through support. We are also a certified Suite Cloud developer, which means we're building applications on the App Exchange for customers to kind of extend the solution out. And we're focused and have always been focused on the mid-market, startup companies, anyone from manufacturing, distribution, service, and software companies. So NetSuite is the fastest growing ERP. This number continues to grow every year, 34,000 companies worldwide, 6,000 logos in the last 12 months, which continues to also grow very rapidly and extending out to over 215 countries. The great thing about NetSuite is it fits the emerging small startup company all the way to the large global company that is maybe coming off a legacy application and is very well established. So it's modularized, so you can buy what you need when you need it, and you can combine the application to extend as far as you need to. I love this slide because it really tells the story of NetSuite. NetSuite has a large breadth, right? And that large 34,000 companies using the application is used across a number of industries. And so the flexibility of the application is vast. And I think that's super important because a lot of companies today are in a mixed mode, right? They're not just a manufacturer. They're not just a distributor. They're doing multiple things. They're manufacturing and service. They're doing distributing and retail. Specifically, when COVID happened, a lot of companies had to flip on a dime and turn into another company, right? Turn into something, maybe sell direct. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to do that with NetSuite, and the functionality was there within the application to do it very quickly. You can go forward. I'm going to transfer this over, and I'll be back with you at the very end to tell you a little bit about the pricing, which I think is interesting to companies. But I'm going to transfer it over to Ben Katterberg, and our Chief Solution Architect.
Hello, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are all at. As Vivian mentioned, I'm Ben Katterberg, our Chief Solution Architect here at Luxent. I have been in consulting for at least the last decade. I've also worked directly for several clients, including global footwear manufacturers. So I've got quite a bit of experience in manufacturing as well as distribution and retail. So I've got a lot of experience seeing how a lot of different companies operate, and I look forward to kind of sharing some of that experience with you all today. Just at a high level here, I created just a process flow. I don't want this to be a little overwhelming to anybody, but I want to cover a lot of different topics here in this short demonstration. So essentially what we're going to look at today is just an orange juice company. You can think of this as, orange juice. You can think of it as medical device manufacturing, but they all kind of will work generally the same based on the demonstration today. So where we're going to start in NetSuite is I'm going to just start off with outputs for MRP, right? I'm assuming planning already executed, and planning is making recommendations for me as the supply chain manager to push out either work orders to build product, in this case, my orange juice, or to my procurement manager for purchase orders to buy raw material. I'll walk through the process of receiving component purchases. We'll see some receipt inspections and the associated kind of quarantine options that can flow through NetSuite, so that in the case of orange juice, right, maybe I buy oranges from some suppliers and I have a inspection that I need to perform up front to make sure my oranges are not rotten before I move them towards my manufacturing process. I'll walk through briefly our manufacturing and our work order build process, combining, I think my ingredients are just 4 oranges that go into a manufacturing process with a little bit of sugar and a single 12-ounce bottle to make a bottled orange juice. And then we will trigger in-process inspections or completion inspections based on that orange juice that I manufacture. And we'll run some tests on that finished product as well, testing things like our pH level of the orange juice, for instance. And then assuming we move it out of quarantine, it's past inspection, we'll ship it out the door to our customers. We'll show some certificate of analysis that explains what lots I sent to which customers and associated test results versus anticipated acceptable ranges. And then we'll move on to customer billing. So we're going to touch a lot of different things in this demo. It'll move fairly quickly, but hopefully this orange juice example will give us enough breadth that we could apply to really any manufacturer of raw materials through a manufacturing process and inspection. All right, with that, I'm going to start sharing my screen. I'm going to start with just a web browser. So NetSuite is 100% cloud-based. What that means is anywhere I have access to the internet, I can access my NetSuite login. So whether you're on a computer, laptop, you have a cell phone, you have a tablet, anywhere you have a web connection, you can log into NetSuite. So I'm just navigating to my netsuite.com browser and I can log in. So with my login, there are security layers around multi-factor authentication, and I can control the level of password security and other things to make sure that nobody else can log into my NetSuite instance without the proper controls in place. So you'll see here on my screen, I'm logged in on the upper right-hand side. You'll notice I'm logged in as Catherine Glass, and I'm logged in as an administrator role. I'm just going to show you a couple basics around some of the navigation, a little bit about the roles, a little bit about the reporting capabilities, and then we'll jump into our scenario walkthrough. So first off, basic navigation in NetSuite. You're going to see here a menu bar up top. I just hover over these and I have other menu options. Each one has its own kind of overview section that I could click on, and it kind of gives me a different, what's called a dashboard, excuse me. With the administrator role, I don't have a very pretty dashboard at all. This is basically just anything and everything kind of thrown into one role, right? But if I were to log into, let's say, my controller role, I'm going to have a very targeted dashboard specific to my role as a controller in the organization. These dashboards come pre-configured in NetSuite based on the particular vertical solution that you purchase in NetSuite. And the point is that you buy this pre-packaged software that has a lot of the configuration already done for you. So from that perspective, we don't have to configure a controller role in this instance from scratch. I'm simply tweaking the controller role that NetSuite gives me based on my specific needs as a controller at my organization. So right off the bat here, you'll see I have a reminders portlet. This reminders portlet essentially serves as workflow. This is telling me, as the controller, I have 5 bills to approve. I have 64 bills to pay. Any one of these I can click and it's going to take me to a data query to show me, here are the specific bills that I need to go in and approve. Because NetSuite is on the cloud, it's browser functionality. So at any point I can open up any of these links in a new tab or in a new window. So I can work on multiple things at once and have multiple tabs open with different kind of work streams happening concurrently. The other thing you'll see just from the basic navigation standpoint is I have a search bar here at the top. This search bar is essentially the Google of NetSuite. I can type something in as simple as a transaction number. So I can do SO1812 if I know I have a specific sales order I need to look up. It'll start popping up suggestions, and once again, with my browser functionality, I could open it in a new tab. And here's my sales order screen that I just searched for that specific sales order. And I can go in and edit, make changes, review, approve, etc. On here as well, I could type something in like maybe Abbott. I have a customer that I know is called Abbott. And it would help if I can spell. But that's also another point where I just type in Abbott, I can see here's a customer, here's a contact, here's projects associated with Abbott. I can take little shortcuts where I can just do Abbott to show me only customers. Or if I wasn't quite sure exactly how to spell Abbott, I could do AB %, OT, and I can find it that way with some wildcards as well. So lots of different ways you can navigate though. So global search bar is one area where you can search for things. You can also navigate through some of these drop-down menus. So I have a customer drop-down lists, and then I can see in my customer list, customers, prospects, leads. This is going to just take me to a list of all customers in this case. And from here, I can customize my view to add or remove different outputs for what I see in my customer view of my list. I can add filters as well. So if I have different categories of customers, I can add a filter. In this case, I have a sales rep filter, so I can look at customers based on certain sales reps. You'll also see some other kind of KPIs that are pre-configured on these roles. So right here in the middle of my screen of my controller role, I have some sales KPIs that are kind of highlighted up top. And then I can see some of those KPIs with some date comparisons of sales this month versus last last quarter or last month. I can change these date ranges as well. So at any time I want to set up my KPI and change some of the underlying data, I just click on the setup, and then I can change my range to say, let's look at this month or this week, 3 days ago, this year. So I can change the KPI date ranges at any point just with the click of a button here. A lot of these reports as well, these are all essentially dynamic data queries behind the scenes, and I can on the fly kind of change my comparative sales data query. I can show bar charts, graphs, very customizable just as the end user. I have some financial KPIs in this case, so I can see my net income as a % of revenue. These are all just the out-of-the-box KPIs, and we can tweak them depending on what your important KPIs are at your organization. If I flip over to let's try sales manager role. I'm going to have very, very different looking dashboards depending on my role. So the KPIs for my controller role may have been more financial related. The KPIs on my sales manager role may be more associated with quotas and opportunities and sales and a lot of transaction-based type of queries. You'll also see there's hyperlinks in any of these data queries and reports. I can click on the hyperlinks, and it's going to take me to the details that make up that specific value. And I can drill all the way down into individual transactions. So I can do this from financial reports, I can do this from transaction reports, and I can see here the value of this customer sales came from these 2 cash sales on this particular day. I'm going to jump back into my administrator role. And I'm just going to run through a couple of the reports that come here right out of the box in NetSuite. But that being said, any one of these reports can be slightly tweaked and customized very easily. And I can also build my own specific reports as I go along here. So maybe to start out on the financial side, I want to look at an income statement report. And let's also look at my balance sheet. And I could even do a comparative balance sheet. So here is my income statement. I have other elements that I could pivot with. So for instance, I have this class segment in NetSuite where I can pivot my class segment on my income statement. And now you can see here, my sales is no longer just that single amount. I can see the total sales amount here, but now I can see my sales by product classification. So I did a complete pivot of my financial statement here based on a product classification. If I am multi-subsidiary, I can filter that context to show me only US based, or I can see the entire consolidated organization in the financial statement there. So I can filter here, or I could even pivot and show my all subsidiaries, but have subsidiaries show as a column rather than just a filter. So in this case, I've got revenue for Canada, revenue for the UK, revenue for the United States, and then total revenue. On the balance sheet, very similar kind of functionality here. This case, this is a comparative balance sheet, but I can also do pivots to show me, let's take the instance of location. I can do a location pivot on my balance sheet. And then when I refresh, what I'm going to see is I may see asset values, and here's the value of my assets depending on the location that I have split out on my columns. So I've got a location for Boston. I've got a location for Blast-O-Matic, which might be maybe vendor managed inventory. And I can see here the value of any one of my balance sheet accounts. In this case, I was interested in inventory. So what is my inventory balance sheet across my location here? I also have a lot of great sales reports. So I can do sales by customer, sales by item, sales by sales rep. I also have some forecasting reports. So if I want to establish quotas, I can run forecasts against those quotas. I also have insight into pipeline analysis. So if I am using NetSuite as my CRM, I can look at the pipeline of sales with quotes or opportunities that I'm targeting specific customers for. Just to give you a little preview here, here is a report, sales by customer summary. You'll see I have a lot of other kind of menu options on. Once I run my report, I can easily export this to Excel. I click this button and then I have an Excel attachment. Click this button, I can have it exported as a PDF. This one is a CSV. This one is a Word. I can email and print. I can set this up to run on a schedule even. So I could run this out of schedule. Here it's telling me, oh, you don't want to run it on this time. This is peak hours. And I can set it, run more than once, and email me sales by customer weekly or bi-weekly and repeat based on a schedule. And then I can customize my message and who I'm sending it to. Then the other simple things you can do with your reports, there's a simple little bar chart. I just click on the graph and I can see here, here's my sales by customer, and here's a bar chart representation showing me Abbott is my highest grossing sales customer, followed by Dover. And then obviously I have other sort of operations reports around inventory, for instance. I could look up my inventory valuation or my current inventory snapshot, or perhaps an inventory back order report. So once again, it's full kind of drill down capabilities here. So I could see my subsidiary context, but then maybe I just want to look on San Francisco location. Show me my back order report for San Francisco. And then it's going to show me by item where I have demand that is back ordered at the moment that I can't fulfill. And showing me even down to the transaction level, right? And I can go navigate to the transaction at the lowest level drop down. All right. So I think that's a bit about reporting. This isn't the full reporting capabilities. Obviously, if you guys have more questions, you want to see more details around the reporting metrics and how to customize the reports and create your own, we certainly can schedule any follow-ups there. I'm going to move into my scenario layout on the scenario we discussed around fresh squeezed orange juice. So I've set up a couple items in NetSuite. One of them is called orange juice, 12-ounce bottle. This is an assembly item in NetSuite. And within my assembly item, I have my recipe, which is designated as this revision. Right, so here's my recipe for orange juice, the 12-ounce bottle in my San Francisco location. Just gonna pop that up so you can see that real quick. This is revision based, so theoretically I can have a Rev 1, Rev 2, Rev 3. I can have different revisions based on locations or just a master default for everywhere globally. The makeup of my bill of material revision is I have 4 oranges, I have a 1/10 a pound of sugar, and a single 12-ounce plastic bottle. And that's going in to make just a single bottle of orange juice. Now, when I'm making orange juice, this is most likely going to be more of a batch manufacturing process. So I have my orange juice assembly configured so that I'm actually manufacturing in batches in my San Francisco location. So within San Francisco, for my planning, I have it set to build rather than purchase. At any time, I could flip it back to purchase if I have that make versus buy decision. But here I have my fixed lot size determined of 60. So I'm making 60 bottles of orange juice, 60 bottles of orange juice at a time in a batch. And that's essentially the scenario layout that I want to run through with you all. So our starting point is going to be our MRP output. So I'm just going to navigate to show you what our MRP output looks like. I created a supply plan definition for my orange juice supply. And this is my planning workbench. I can see here I kept it simple. So I have my orange juice bottle finished good. I have my oranges and I have my sugar. If I open this up, I can see the dependent demand. So I've configured this scenario to have sugar and oranges as dependent demand on my finished orange juice bottle. The one thing you'll see that is not in this planning workbench is my bottle, my plastic bottle. In this case, I set up my plastic bottle as just a regular stocking item. So I want to maintain certain stocking levels at all times of my plastic bottle. But then I have my sugar and my oranges as the dependent demand. So I set up a sales order for a customer order. I also set up a demand plan, a weekly demand plan for my batches of orange juice. And then I ran my supply plan, and this is the output. The first thing you'll see here is there are two actions. If I click on my actions, it's telling me that I need to consider releasing a planned purchase order for my oranges, my raw material, and as well as releasing my planned work order for 60 12-ounce bottles of orange juice. If at any time I wanted to see kind of the makeup of supply versus demand and what decisions went into it, these are also hyperlinks. So if I wanted to focus on orange juice here, if I click on my supply number for orange juice, I can see here there's two planned POs and they're a couple weeks apart. I could click on my demand and say, what's driving the demand for orange juice? In this case, there's some planned work orders out there, right? Because this is dependent demand on the demand for orange juice. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on my actions. I'm going to mark them all. So my planned PO and my planned work order, I'm going to perform my actions. This is going to be kind of that day-to-day role for my planner, is reviewing the planning output, validating that it's accurate, and then I push it out of the workbench into my supply chain manager. All right, so as the supply chain manager, what they're going to see from the planning workbench is a reminder. So they have this reminder that operates like workflow. I'll have an assemblies to order as a supply chain manager, and then perhaps my procurement manager has an items to order reminder. So my supply chain manager is going to go in and see I have 6 assemblies to order. This is kind of a mass create work order screen, and I have different sub tabs based on the method for planning. When I run MRP, it's going to be under planned orders. But if I have specific stocking levels, it's going to be under the reorder point items. So depending on how I planned, I'm going to have access to see all of it on these different tabs. And it just shows me by planning method where it's coming from. And then all I have to do is check the box and submit. You'll also notice here, it's recommending that I make 60 bottles. I have 12 back ordered, and it's because of my batch size, right? I only have 12 that I need to make right now, but I make them in batches of 60. And that's configurable. You don't have to do batch sizing, but very common in food and beverage. So I'm going to go ahead and submit here my mass create work orders. And then the other thing I'm going to do, I am going to open up my home dashboard in a new tab. I'm going to go to my items to order, and then I'm going to perform the procurement function. So if you recall in our example, I needed to create the work order for orange juice, but I was short oranges. I didn't have enough oranges. So now in my procurement workbench, looks very similar to that other supply chain manager's screen here. I have the different planning methods, and these are the sources of raw material that I need to purchase based on the planning method. So under planned orders, that's MRP. I can see my recommendation to buy 250 oranges from my preferred vendor here. And my preferred vendor and pricing automatically comes in. And I can submit this. And it's going to go into a batch processing screen and create my purchase orders for me. So theoretically, I could check all the boxes and submit, and it's going to create one purchase order per vendor. So if I was buying multiple things from the same vendor, it's combining them all into the same PO up to the number of line items that I allow it to, which is some other backend configuration. So I'm coming back to my mass create work order screen. I'm going to hit my refresh here just to validate. So it's all set. It says complete, and I can see all the work orders that it created. In this case, it just created my single work order I needed for my 12-ounce bottles of orange juice in my batch size of 60. I'm going to hit my refresh here on my purchase order mass create screen. And here I can see it successfully created my purchase order for my vendor. So you'll notice here on my purchase order as well, I'm buying 250 oranges, but I have the oranges configured to purchase in a different purchasing unit. So in this case, it's a case of 50. I'm buying 5 cases of 50 for a total of 250 oranges. So my purchase order has been created. I may have configuration where it automatically emailed my vendor the purchase order. I can do that in batch. I can send it to multiple contacts potentially, but I have the ability to email the vendor, here's my order, this is what I need from you. And then what I want to show next is I've got this configured here for a receipt inspection. So let's say the oranges, the 5 cases of 50 showed up to my warehouse dock, and I'm receiving them. So I'm receiving them directly in the NetSuite GUI here on my computer, but there is scan barcode functionality in a WMS that NetSuite has, where you could do this on a handheld as well. So I am going into the inventory detail. I'm saying I'm receiving all 5 cases of 50. And this is where I'm defining my lots in this case. So I define oranges as a lot controlled item. And so I'm specifying by quantity, how many lots did I receive here? So let's just say I received all 5 and I have an expiration for oranges, and maybe they're good through the end of the month. And my lot number is 123. When I'm receiving those oranges, I do have the ability to receive in a different status. This would be like a quarantine status. So if I know my oranges always get quarantined because they need to go through an inspection, I may receive them potentially in a quarantine status. Otherwise, I can have automation drive this status of quarantine. So in this case, just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to receive them into quarantine status. and I will save my item receipt. So a couple things that are going to happen here in the background in NetSuite. Upon saving the item receipt, I do have my first GL impact for the finance folks on the call. This is where I'm hitting my raw material inventory asset account and then my accrued liabilities reconciliation account, right? The whole three-way match process between my purchase order, receipt, and then eventually my vendor bill. Right, but the other impact here is obviously the material impact. I just received 5 cases of oranges. I'm going to just pull up my oranges inventory item just for the sake of demonstration. I'm going to go into my inventory detail. And I can see here I have inventory number 123. That was my lot number. In a status of quarantine, 250 on hand. But I received them into quarantine, so theoretically they are not available to use on my work order. So if I come back to my work order, I'm just going to hard refresh my browser here to show you. So my work order, when it's in a released status, it'll auto commit raw material inventory to it based on a pre-configured allocation strategy. I'll see here, it still shows the 240 oranges as back ordered on my work order, and that's because they're not considered available. One note too is supply allocation. This is a hyperlink, so on my work order, I can click this hyperlink on sugar, for instance. There's a 6 there, and this is where I can see where that sugar for this work order is coming from, and I can see it's in inventory. Right, I already own it. It's in San Francisco and it's allocated that inventory to this order. Same thing with my 12-ounce bottle. Already have 60 that were ready to go. Theoretically, I have 540 available, but I can see where it's coming from. It's coming from inventory. These allocation strategies can be configured to look at future inventory, meaning I might have a purchase order that's on the boat expected to receive next week. I have visibility from that hyperlink from the source of demand or the source of supply to look backwards or forwards up the supply chain. So the last thing we saw was I received some oranges into quarantine. I'm actually going to pop open my data collection tablet from the quality perspective. And here's my queue as a quality engineer. I can pick from the queue. I can also have a quality manager who assigns from the queue, right? But maybe I'm a small enough organization where I just have one quality person and they're just picking from the queue. It's sorted by age right now, so I can see this one's 3 minutes old. Here's some oranges. It was from this PO, from this receipt. It's pending. So I'm going to open up my inspection. And I can see here my inspection is just a visual. So here's lot number 123 of my orange that I received, and I'm going to do a visual inspection. I have a little question mark here because I can configure a instruction. So maybe I can say use this tool to perform this test or provide more instruction to that quality engineer. And then the validation is like a true or false, right? So in this case, it's a visual inspection. Check it if it's acceptable, and then upload a photo in this case. And I'm going to record my result. And then it should obviously pass because I checked it as a Boolean. Yes, this should pass visual inspection. All right, and then it drops off in my queue and I would move on to the next one as the quality manager. So I may also have a process for quality where once something passes, I want to move it back out of my quarantine status. So I can have that set up with a workflow to automate that, or I can use a control in place to make sure a user is doing it and I can see which user moved it back to good inventory from quality. In this case, I'm going to show you the manual process here. So my previous status was quarantine. My new status is going to be good. And I'm looking for my oranges. So all 250 passed my inspection. So I'm moving all 250 of this specific lot back into good standing. So now my manufacturing team should have visibility to this work order now that I have enough raw material. So previously none were committed. I refreshed my work order. And I can see here all 240 were committed to this work order. I have everything I need to build this work order. So depending on the complexity of your organization, I'm just showing a simple one-step assembly build, which would typically be done perhaps as like a backflush process. But in NetSuite, you do have the capability of configuring detailed routing steps. So maybe step 1 is a mashing process, step 2 is a blending process, and you can define specific work centers, as well as number of labor resources, number of machinery resources, to really bring in the cost of your production for material, labor, and overhead into the cost of the product you're manufacturing, as well as leveraging those detailed times to get you towards more of a production scheduling model. So on my work order assembly build here, I was just saying which lots that I picked for this particular build, which lot of oranges, which lot of sugar. And my quantity to build right now is 60 bottles. And then I'm going to give it a lot number and expiration of the finished bottle of orange juice. I will admit many of our clients who are making things like orange juice, they may have a separate sort of bottling process and labeling process. So they may have potentially a sub-assembly layer that comes between making kind of the batch of orange juice and then bottling it, because they may have different sizes of bottles and labeling requirements. So that may potentially be another layer of work order here, but I'm just doing this for simplicity. So I define my lot number on my assembly build of what I just built, and then I save my assembly build. So once again, there is going to be a GL impact here. There is material implications as well as financial implications. These materials were all configured to post to the same raw material inventory account. Perhaps you have a different assembled finished goods material account for your finished good, so that you'll see here's the sum of my raw materials, and here is the sum of my raw materials adding up to my finished good value. This is also where you would see here on my completion, if this was more of a two-step manufacturing process, I would have a WIP posting to issue materials, and then I would have a completion step where I'm completing different steps of my routing and adding other costs like machinery and labor and other costs other than just material. All right, so I just built my assembly and I put it in good. I didn't want to necessarily show you a second inventory status move. I put it in good, but it still did trigger a quality check. So I have a different quality check that I want to do for my finished good. So back to my quality tablet here. This is the newest one. It's the orange juice 12-ounce bottle work order from this assembly that I built. So once again here, I have the same inspection that was just a visual inspection. Like visually, is it the color okay? Does it look okay? And I can post a photo as well, and I'm going to record that result. But now I have a second inspection that I linked to my finished good assembly. And what that is a pH test. So here's my lot number 1111. I made 60 bottles of it. I inspect one sample and I had 0 defects. And my pH value was, if I do like 3.1, I can see it's still yellow. If I do 3.5, it kind of turns green, giving me a preview of what is acceptable. But I also could click on the little question mark and say my pH test validation. It's got to be minimum 3.3 pH, maximum 4.2. So I can see what that acceptable range is there as well as I'm testing it. Right, so I recorded the results of both inspections and then I finished my inspection. All right, so in that case, it's all good. My quality team may move the inventory back into good usable inventory that I could ship out to a customer. So in this case, I'm just going to pull up my sales order that I already created here. So my sales order for Sports and Outdoor Academy, they are looking to buy 1 case of 12. As soon as I completed that work order and the inventory was moved in a status of good, that inventory auto committed to my sales order. So as soon as it's complete and it's in good status, now I have visibility to it in the warehouse to be able to ship this customer's order out the door. So I can see here, I have an order quantity of 1. I have my allocated supply of 1, and it's fully committed to this order. Right, so my warehouse, if you want to see more detailed warehouse functionality, I can show you the full kind of picking ticket process. We can print pick tickets, we can print packing slips. But in this case, I'm just going to take a little bit of a shortcut here. I'm configuring the inventory detail of what I'm shipping out. I'm saying this specific lot number I'm taking out of inventory to send to my customer, and this quantity of that lot number. And I did get a little warning saying it's close to expiration. Those notifications can be set up depending on any sort of expiration requirements you all have. I also have visibility to expiration on my home dashboard. I can pull that up real quick just to share. There is part of that workflow, these reminders. I have, here's 3 lots that are nearing expiration. I click into that and it shows me I've got 4 materials. Here's the lot number. This is where they are. And then this is how many are out there, 60. All right, so I created a fulfillment. It's in a picked status. I theoretically could move it all the way forward, picked, packed, and then shipped out the door. So I moved it to packed, moved it to shipped. Once again, if you all want to be able to see the details of the pick tickets, the packing slips, NetSuite also has pre-built integrations with UPS, FedEx for packing stations and shipping labels and shopping rates. I can show you that. Once my fulfillment gets to a shipped status, that's the point where I have my GL impact. So no longer in inventory, now it becomes my cost of goods. So there's my financial posting to cost of goods. As soon as I shipped it out the door, obviously material implications. So now I have less bottles of orange juice in stock. I used 1 case out of the 5 cases that I just built. So I'll have less inventory on my inventory reports. The other thing that this should have done as soon as I shipped it out the door is I configured a certificate of analysis to generate based on what I just shipped out the door. So it's in my NetSuite file cabinet. This is cloud storage here. I've got it configured to have the fulfillment document number reference here. So here's my item fulfillment 1528. I can pop that open. And here is the certificate of analysis. And you're going to have 1 page per lot number. In this case, I just sent 1 lot, but if I sent 3 different lots of orange juice to this customer, they'd have this certificate of analysis page 3 times for each lot. And on here, I can see here's the item, here's the customer, here's the date timestamp, Here's the sales order reference, the fulfillment, the lot number, the quantity, and then the specific field I configured to show up on here, which was the pH test. And I can see my value is 3.5. And the criteria, the acceptable pH ranges are between 3.3 and 4.2. And I could print this out. I could send it to my customer. I could attach it to my sales order. I have that internal documentation now to share and back up, right? If a customer comes back and says, hey, this doesn't look right, I can go back and look at my test and say, we tested it, this is the value. Perhaps we need to make a change to our quality inspection test and maybe increase the sampling requirements or something like that. And then the last thing I'm going to show you here as we're getting towards the end is our lot traceability. So what we just saw was kind of this orange juice scenario that took some raw materials and went all the way through manufacturing and shipment. And so what I want to do is I want to show you some of the reporting. So here's my orange juice bottle, and here's my lot number. And what you're going to be able to see with this lot trace is, one, you're going to be able to see the fulfillments. So in this case, I'm looking up a finished good. I can see the fulfillments, so which customers on which orders and fulfillments it went out to on what days. So I'll be able to see kind of that finished good outlay. I can see the quality data in the inspection results from there. I'll be able to see production, so what happened during the manufacturing process, and drill back into the components and the specific lots of components. So if I knew I had a bad orange from a supplier, I could start with the orange and move forward to see all the work orders and where it was sent out as a finished product to, or backwards, starting with the orange juice bottle and see what all components went into it to do that full forward or backward traceability. Right, so here's my report. Here's my fulfillments. In this case, the item, the lot number, expiration, sales order fulfillment, the quantity, ship date, customer, where it went to. I can see all that fulfillment data. Quality data, I can drill in to see the specific inspections and results on my quality data. So when this work order was completed with this assembly build, here were the results of the quality tests. I can go back to production. I can expand my node from my orange juice bottle to see in production what components went into it, and then what were the associated lots of the orange juice, and then, or the specific oranges and sugar that went into this orange juice bottle. Right, and all of these are hyperlinks. I can go backwards, forwards. I can trace just the oranges now, that full lot traceability here. All right, so that is all for the quick demonstration. I know it went very fast and we saw a lot of different things. Feel free to reach out if you want to see more details of any of those interworkings of those processes, or just see how your processes might look in NetSuite. The last thing I want to share here quickly is NetSuite is modular. It's kind of a plug and play system where you can plug in a demand planning module, which we saw here. There's some other areas of NetSuite like fixed assets that we didn't necessarily get into, but it's very feature rich. There's a lot of features and functionality. We can get into heavier manufacturing with detailed WIP and routings. We can get into costing. I know the accountants in the room in manufacturing environments, they may have standard costing, so we can support all of that. Incentive compensation for sales reps who might get commission based on what they sell. So there's a lot of different features in NetSuite that are out there to support essentially any requirement you guys have. And if those specific modules don't even support what you need, we have an app exchange in NetSuite with a lot of third-party apps that are pre-built and ready to plug in. All right, and with that, I'll pass it over to Vivian for the close.
Thanks, Ben. That was amazing. That was a great demo, complete, a lot of information packed in there. So good job. I just wanted to quickly, I know everybody has some kind of thoughts on the pricing and excited to see what that pricing looks like. We can go to the next slide. So why should you buy NetSuite and when should you buy, right? So there's tons of customers that come to us at different levels. Some coming off of QuickBooks or Excel and not wanting to grow their workforce, but wanting to grow through an automation but have the need for either bringing in more people or bringing in automation. And a lot of times bringing in a system like NetSuite, if brought in carefully for a startup company, works. And allows you to grow and be ready to scale when those opportunities come your way. Companies that have inventory and supply chain needs, warehouse needs, those are companies that start to look for an ERP because their accounting system often doesn't handle the inventory management very well. Like I said, companies on the legacy side, we just brought over a couple companies from very large legacy systems and we're able to bring them over to NetSuite and handle all of their manufacturing needs and all of their quality needs. Just companies that are in a growth mode. We've seen companies where they don't have an ERP in place and they get the opportunity to go work with a Walmart or a Target and they can't scale fast enough to take on those opportunities. So, being ready to scale is really important and having the right infrastructure in place. And then just expanding internationally. I saw at the beginning, NetSuite is available in 215 countries and probably expanding more as we speak. So, just very, very much able to meet those international needs. So the pricing starts at $99 a user. And that is before discounting. And then there's starter packs, right? So NetSuite is really trying hard to be there for the company that's emerging, that's starting, that smaller company, and helping you with a starter pack of somebody that's 10 users or less. And then kind of going into some standard packaging for companies that are going to be under 30 users for quite some time. And then for the larger companies over the 30 users. So, we work, you can go to the next slide. As a solution partner, we work hard on your behalf. So NetSuite has different types of partners, right? There's an alliance partner, and they primarily handle services for companies. They often work with NetSuite Direct, and they kind of extend out and handle the services piece. The direct team obviously is another option for you through NetSuite Direct. And then there's companies like us, and there's not very many of us, but the companies that really can do it all. We can handle the licensing, we can handle the implementation, and we can handle the support. So why go to a solution partner versus go to NetSuite Direct or go to, I think your other option would be NetSuite Direct. And it's really to have somebody working on your behalf in that negotiation, somebody who's negotiating for you, who knows the negotiation power we can have, who can protect you on your contract and your renewals, who has the industry expertise that is ensuring that you're only getting the software you need when you need it. And really working with you long term. So, we're accountable. So we are selling you the solution and then ensuring you get implemented effectively, and then your partner for long term. So we're not going to sell you something that you're not going to be using very soon, because we can buy that when we need it. And we're going to slowly grow with you, because that's our investment. We want to grow with our customers. So we're looking for the long-term partnership. So I think working with a solution partner is really, really giving you that edge that many companies, that I believe all companies need in looking at an ERP solution. With that, I'm going to say thank you. I know we are right at time, exactly on time. Ben, thank you so much for that great complete demo. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any additional questions or would like a private demo for your specific company.